This is Adventurer for Life. I'm Joel, and just like last week with Mainline Overland, I am going to do a preamble of the James Baroud installation. Again, I've done lots of addendums, but now this is my second preamble. So again, I intended to do a video of the James Baroud Evasion rooftop tent installation, and then do a review of the tent itself separately. But obviously I never took possession of the James Baroud tent, so I can't do a review of the tent itself. Again, not intended to be negative, but I do want to help other people who, keep other people from making the same mistake I did. And so I want to provide some information on that. So why did I pick James Baroud? Well, originally I had decided to buy a Roof Nest Sparrow tent. I put a lot of time and effort and energy into watching YouTube videos and looking at reviews and all that kind of stuff. But I really was within days of placing my order for that, and I saw something online about some bad reviews they had, and I started checking into it more and basically figured out that, Roof Nest, from what I can tell, advertises themselves as a company that manufactures stuff in the United States, and it turns out that really they're getting their stuff manufactured in China. And if you get a good one, you're happy. If you get a bad one, it's a piece of junk, and they won't stand behind their product. And so, I punted. Again, originally intended to do the Roof Nest thing, and I saw that bad information online, and I finally decided, hey, I just can't do that. I'd seen several reviews about the James Baroud tent, and basically that it was the best. And one of the reasons I didn't choose it to begin with was that, it was from Europe, from Portugal, and there was going to be shipping costs and whatnot, and it was more expensive, and that's not typically my determining factor. But from what I could tell, the Roof Nest was as good or better, so that's why I didn't choose the James Baroud. But once I canceled the Roof Nest tent, I just decided, hey, I'll go the James Baroud route. And it just so happened that they were having a 20% sale on all their tents, and so I thought, I'll go that route. I'll get the best of the best, so to speak, and it won't be any more expensive than any other Roof Nest or any other rooftop tent. So I looked for a local distributor and found this Mainline that I talked about last week, and placed my order with them. And again, I did a review of Mainline last week. I'm not going to talk about that here this week. Again, I don't have anything negative or positive to say about James Baroud and their quality. I never used the tent. I saw it, externally or whatnot, but that doesn't really tell you anything. I can only tell you that to install the James Baroud Evasion rooftop tent on a Rhino-Rack Pioneer platform, you just can't do it with the hardware that comes from Rhino-Rack and from James Baroud. And I wasn't really interested in, and since this rack, the Rhino-Rack, comes from Ineos, and since they installed it for me, that's the rack that I wanted to use. And obviously I've already bought it and paid for it and had it installed, and it looks like it's going to do what I want it to do, but it just doesn't look like, originally I was going to have to buy bracket hardware, which you'll see in one of the videos in a second, adapter hardware that goes on the rack, and other adapter hardware that goes on the James Baroud tent to make it connect. And that's obviously not the greatest. You've got multiple points of failure in there. You're better off just bolting the tent straight onto the rack. But I was willing to do the other, but once they started telling me that I was going to have to introduce other kinds of adapters and whatnot, that's when I pulled the plug on it. I should say, and this is the last thing I'll say in the preamble, I did look around a little bit more, and ARB just recently came out with a new tent that I had not seen before called the Altitude. I actually discovered it the night before I went to Mainline Overland to get the James Baroud installed, and so that certainly went into my thinking when I decided to punt on the James Baroud, because I think the Altitude tent probably is more to my liking or whatnot. If I had known about it 6 weeks ago, I'd have bought it. Instead, there's a much larger network. for ARB stuff and dealers than there is for James Baroud. So anyway, with that saying, the preamble's over and you can watch the real-time videos. Okay, so we've unboxed the tent. It's a James Baroud Evasion medium, and got this forklift, so I was thinking we might put that thing up there by hand, but obviously if you got a forklift it's a lot easier. I don't know that it's ever coming off. We shall see. So you see the bracket that we're going to use to mount this thing with. So the way this works is there's this bracket right here that goes under those rails and holds it on. So that's where we are right now. We're going to get it installed and I'll show you some more. Okay, so we've put these brackets for the James Baroud tent into the channels that are underneath, and then we're going to move this tent forward and slide it over the brackets that come from Rhino-Rack. So there's a set of brackets that are hooked to the James Baroud tent, and then there's another set of brackets that goes on the Rhino-Rack, and that's how they're attached to each other. So at this point there's two of us working on this, and obviously you can see we're using a forklift, so the idea that you're going to take this on and off, put it on for a weekend and take it off for a weekend, is probably not accurate. So we'll see how this goes. I mean, what are the odds that I'm ever going to take this thing off? It looks like it's relatively slim. Again, this bracket set here came from Rhino-Rack, and this bracket set here came from James Baroud, and you can see how it slides in that channel underneath the tent, and these are going to go on each side of this, and then there's a bolt that goes, you can probably see the bolt hole there. There's a bolt that goes through there, and so the bolt's going to go underneath this bracket. And you know, the guy that's helping me install it said the tighter you tighten down that bolt, the more it's going to pull these together, which obviously the more it's going to hold underneath that clamp right there, or that bracket that's on the Rhino-Rack. It does appear that, you know, hopefully we're going to put this tent as far forward as possible. So we're going to put the front lip of the tent equal with the front lip of the Rhino-Rack, and hopefully that's going to leave me enough room on the back to put on the roto-packs and some other things. Okay, we've run into a sticking point. This the hardware, you see that plastic piece that comes with the this piece here, and I call it plastic, but it's you know, some kind of hard plastic, fibrous piece, something like that. You see a couple of them right there on the fender of the Grenadier. There's supposed to be one on this side of the bracket, one on this side of the bracket, and you squeeze them together. The problem is, and I'm not going to be able to show it to you very well, but if you look at where that plastic bracket is, it's got to fit down into that channel, and that one has to too, but because of the positioning of the rails on the James Baroud tent, the positioning of those rails happens to be above this. So the hardware that came with the James Baroud tent is not going to work, and I think what we're going to be able to do is take just a bolt with a washer and slide it down that channel. If you can see it, the channel on the James Baroud tent, I think we're going to be able to slide it down there, stick it in the hole. I'm going to put this camera underneath, stick it in the hole of that bracket, and just bolt it underneath the bracket there, and that's going to work fine. But we've got to find, you know, a bolt and a washer with the right size that'll fit through that channel, and obviously have a locking nut and whatnot on the other side. So I'll run into some problems and we'll see where we go from here. Okay, so I've got a really difficult question for you. Do you see a rooftop tent on the Rhino-Rack Pioneer cargo carrier on top of my Grenadier? The answer is no. And you see that 2 of the brackets have been taken off, and I'm fixing to take off the other 2 brackets. And there is what was my James Baroud rooftop tent, but which is going back to James Baroud. And I will see you next week to talk about all the other accessories that I purchased, and then potentially talk about how they fit on the roof rack. See you then.